Hey, you guys, welcome. On this week's episode of the SP Mamas podcast, I am joined by Carleen Mathews, former CrossFit Games athlete, CrossFit gym owner, street parking member, and mom to 4-month-old baby Charlotte. She is open and honest and talks about her experience with changing identity, her struggle and recovery from eating disorders and addiction to alcohol, and she's just a ray of light and strength, and I'm excited for you to hear her story. Hi, you guys. Welcome back to the SP Mamas podcast. My name is Carolina. I am the street parking pregnancy and postpartum coach and the host of this podcast, and today I am so pumped, so honored to have as my guest Carleen Mathews, who also happens to live relatively local, so we get to do this in person, which is really special. But Carleen, you may know her as CrossFit Games competitor, 3-time CrossFit Games competitor, athlete. She's also a CrossFit gym owner, and a street parking member, and a new mom to baby Charlotte, who is 4 months old. So we have a lot to dive into, and just thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you for asking me. It's an honor.
Yeah. Okay, so let's start with pregnancy, or even trying to conceive. And can you just share a little bit about that, and was there a specific time where you were like, okay, now we're going to start trying, and how did that impact your life and your training or what you were doing at the time?
So it must have been like 2017, or after 2017, the games season, I was injured, and going into 2018, like I kind of lost like the competitive drive a little bit. So I knew that things were kind of changing for me. And so after that season, I kind of like, I was able to take a step back, and I didn't make it to the games in 2018. And I was totally okay with it. Like I kind of lost a drive to compete. And so I said to my husband, I think I'm ready to have a baby. He had been waiting since probably the day after we met. And he had said that to me a lot of times, I've been ready. I'm just waiting for you. And so I finally was like, I think I'm ready. And so we decided to start trying. The first really step in us to start trying was for me to get my hormones or get my period back, really, because I hadn't had a period for probably 5 years. Wow. So it's just a lot of overtraining. I fueled myself up what I felt like was appropriately, but probably still under fueling. And so, we kind of embarked on this journey for me to get my period back. And it was a long process. So it was really hard for me to tone back training. It was really hard for me to accept that I had to put on some body fat. And that was a really hard process. So we went on a vacation. I just tried to kind of step back from the competition world. I started kind of working with a coach that was going to help me kind of slow down my training, to take it from competitive to more of a less intensity. And that was just really hard. Intensity is where I want to live. So we did that. We spent a year of trying to get my period back, and just trying to tone back intensity in order to get my period back. Didn't work. I ended up doing the open for fun and and I actually did really well. I went to the games in 2019 as a master's. And I did the best I've ever done because I didn't have any expectations for myself. I was like, we're just trying to get pregnant.
Yeah.
And so after that year or that summer, we had, right before I went to the games, we had decided to start going to a fertility clinic. And so we started that process maybe like 2 weeks before the games. They were like, all right, we're going to put you on this medication. And we were like, you know what? Let's hold off 2 weeks on the medication in case that I do well and I have to get drug tested.
Yeah.
Let's not take any chances. So we held off for like 2 weeks, and which was good because I don't know what would have happened had I been on the fertility meds.
Yeah.
So then after I got back from the games, we started like right in on fertility meds. And so my husband was giving me shots like once or twice a day. And I ended up getting my period back. And then we went right into an IUI. So IUI, where they took his semen and then they just insert it inside of me.
Okay.
They what was really cool about that process though is that they washed it. So they clean it up and make it super really good sperm, fresh, clean,
wow.
really good.
Really effective.
Yes.
Okay.
And we happened to have a friend that worked for the fertility company in the lab department. And so she got us a video of the sperm and a before and after. So it was really, really cool. So we go in, we do an IUI, and, we're kind of usually it's 1 to 5 times that you need to get an IUI. We got pregnant on the first try.
Wow.
So, January 1st of last year, my pregnancy test came up positive. So, that's kind of that was our lead up, right, to getting pregnant. It was definitely a struggle. We tried for about 2 years. And they really don't have any reasoning for me. They're yeah, it's just
yeah,
you're just not having your period and you're just, we don't know what's wrong.
Yeah.
So I'm actually in the process now of going and getting my hormones checked again so that to see what they're doing now.
Right.
Because they weren't right before. So what are they going to do now that
for sure, and postpartum is just just shakes everything up, and yeah, you're not totally sure what you're gonna get. Wow. Okay, so it sounds like you really were in a place of transition into parenthood from early on, those 2 years. It was all a part of this becoming for you, and unbecoming, I think it sounds like some of the more competitive athlete side of you. So I feel like that in itself is a big transition.
That's
and changing identities. And
absolutely. It's been huge for me. And that's where I kind of look at it and I'm actually really grateful to have had those 2 years.
Yeah.
Because it took me that long. It took me that long to start to be okay with the fact that I don't get to be selfish anymore and it's not all about me, and even after having the baby I still was oh yeah, it's not all about me.
Yeah.
But
oh, wow, what an interesting
Yeah, it was definitely like I went through like a grieving process of like grieving like CrossFit and intensity, and because I wasn't supposed to be doing it, but I was still kind of doing it, you know.
Yeah.
And, so it was really a battle like for me to tone it down.
Yeah. Yeah, I also took like a year, I called it the year of me, where I basically was like, I am going to do things that bring me joy. One, because I wanted to get myself in a place just like mentally that was healthy and happy.
Right.
And also because I knew that our life would be changing a lot. And so I was like, I just want to do the stuff that I love, that feels good, that makes me happy, that feels maybe kind of selfish. So I did a lot of that for about a year. And even still, now I'm like, oh man, I had no idea how...
I should have done more stuff.
Yeah. So then you get pregnant, and like you said, you've had these 2 years to kind of mentally prepare for some of this transition. It sounds like maybe that got you to a place where you were probably more open to changing up some of your training. Did you change your training? How did you, what was that like, working out and being pregnant?
Yeah, I did. I mean, when I first, through that IUI process, you know, not everyone, but my doctor told me, like, all right, I want you to keep your heart rate at 140. And, like, it was very hard for me to really figure out what's right for me and what is just a blanket statement from the doctor. And that was a blanket statement from the doctor that she tells everyone. That wasn't necessarily right for me, but I had to do what they told me, you know, to do. So I kept it within a range. I would, like, you know, always tell myself, like, all right, you're going to keep your heart rate. And so I did a lot of heart rate monitoring in that first, like, trimester, especially in the first, right after the IUI and until we, like, knew we were pregnant. So I really monitored not getting my heart rate up too high. And then it was just, like, I really just did, like, more... like less weights, more like I just rode the bike a lot. Once I like got pregnant, knew I was pregnant, I started feeling really shitty. So I kind of made the like agreement to myself that like I'm going to do something every day. Whereas if I was training for the games or like competing, I'd be like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday train, Thursday off, like rest day, whatever. And in this situation, like once I was pregnant, I was like, I just want to do something every day. So it's not going to be like 3 days on, 1 day off. Like you're just going to go straight through and you're just going to do something, even if it's riding the bike nice and easy. And then there were some days where I felt good. So yeah, I like made this commitment to myself to do something every day, and like I was able to do it. I didn't realize until like the second trimester how bad I felt in the first. And like I look back at it, I'm like, how did I work out? Like, like I did not feel good.
Yeah.
But I also didn't have it as bad as like I've heard other people's stories, you know, and
Sure. Yeah.
so I'm like, okay, I didn't have it that bad. But yeah, so I, you know, continued to work out. Once I found out I was pregnant, that's when I signed up for street parking.
Oh, cool.
So I kind of geared it more towards like being able to have the mom modifications and stuff like that for me, like really helped give me like a guide to where to go for different like movements. And that was really all I followed. And I made sure, you know, that I was doing what I had committed to. And the first trimester was like just survive. The second I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like I'm killing it.
Yeah.
I felt so good. And then third kind of went like back down again. And that was kind of what my like doctor had told me to anticipate. She was like, you're going to go down, you're going to go up, and then you're going to go back down.
Yeah.
So that was, I loved being pregnant and working out when I was pregnant.
Oh, cool.
So it was really fun.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I kind of found that it was fun too. And it was like, I don't know, I imagine you have a lot of experience with like making adjustments for members or athletes in your own gym. And sometimes I find that it's almost even more fun where I can get creative with the workout and be like, okay, how can I make this work for me? Or like, you can literally make any workout work for any body, even a, 30-week pregnant body. So it was like, okay, well, this is like the stimulus that I want to get, or this is, this would actually help me training and preparing for this thing, or like, it's just kind of fun. I think it can be fun to approach training with that kind of creativity.
Absolutely. 100%. Like, that's what I tell my athletes is like, please give me your injuries, your whatever. This is where my job is at. This is my job, and this is the part I love, and that's exactly like it allows me to be creative, and that's the art around coaching is being able to scale and modify. And then the cool part about it is that like I've had injury, so I have some ideas based off that. I also now have the pregnancy experience, and so now I have a lot of ideas around that. So, I have a male who I'm noticing coning on. Like, I'm going to like, I know how to approach that for him. I know how to scale him. I know how to modify him.
Yeah.
So it's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's like part of that art form is like not only being able to scale and modify for someone, but also have them feel hopefully empowered by those modifications and included. And I think that's part of what I love about street parking is that it's like we kind of all understand that just because my workout looks different from yours or because it's a customized version of it or whatever doesn't mean that it's more or less than. Like we're on our own paths and we can all feel badass in our own ways, even if I'm doing low step ups or whatever, like that is still cool for where I'm at in my level.
Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned, well, I guess let me ask, were you thinking of a plan for your birth? Was there something that you had in mind? Some people feel very strongly about like, I definitely want to do a home birth or a hospital or whatever. Was that the case for you, or were you kind of open to things? And how did you start to approach getting closer to the actual birth?
Actually, I was always somebody who, before I got pregnant, I was like, I'm having a C-section and I'm getting all the drugs and like, just take the baby out of me. I don't want to do any of this.
Yeah.
And as I went through the pregnancy, I started to become open to different experiences. So I was like, well, maybe I could do this. Like, maybe I don't. Like, my husband's like, no, you want meds. And I was like, but maybe I could do it. And so we started looking into a doula. And that was something that I had heard from a lot of, like, friends that, like, get a doula. Get a doula. If you get anything, get a doula. Yeah. And so we really started, like, looking into that. I had like reached out to you about that, and we ended up going with like somebody that you had like mentioned, and that was a really good experience for us because that allowed me also to be more open to all the different like experiences that I could have. But yeah, I wasn't really somebody who I was like, yes, I really, really want this. No, I really don't want this. There was a lot of things that I was just like, we're going to do what we're going to do. And yes, this is the plan, but I'm okay with a plan B.
Cool.
So when we went into it, the plan was no medication, and as long as I could go, and then that I wanted to be active during my pregnancy or my labor, and turns out when we got into it, that I had no desire to be active whatsoever. Like I was like, nope, I do not want to move. I just want to stay here. So it's interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about that, about the actual birth itself. You are kind of in this like fortunate position, I guess, where you told me that your doula suggested you write out some notes a few days after the birth. So you were able to like write out some of those notes, and it sounds like your story was fresh when you wrote it then, and you were also pretty clear. So hopefully now this is an opportunity for you to kind of like put some of that together and just tell us the story of Charlotte's birth.
Absolutely. So I mean, it really started that the morning that it so September 2nd, I had coached an early morning class, so I was up at like 4 a.m. I coached, I took a nap, and then I had one of our friends that's a member. She was doing some photography for me, and I was wanting every single week leading up to, starting at like 36 weeks leading up. And she had said the day before, hey, do you want to try Thursday? And I go, I don't know. Can we do it Wednesday? Because I'm afraid she might come Thursday. My due date was the 7th, and I had her on the 2nd.
Wow.
So, I had noticed things kind of like changing. Like for like probably a couple days before, I had like stronger like cervical mucus. So like more cervical mucus. And that was different for me. So she came and, I went downstairs and got ready for her to come and take pictures of me. And I had mentioned to her when she walked in, I was like, man, I just really like, I was sitting on the bike and I was like, she's like in my butt. Like, I'm like, she's down, like her head is like down there and like whatever. And so like, but it was kind of nothing like different for me, that different. And we started a workout, and I started a street parking workout, and I got like, it was like a 5-minute AMRAP, and I think we got like 2 or 3 minutes in, and I was deadlifting and my water broke. Whoa. So I didn't know at that point, like, was that my water breaking?
Yeah.
We kind of like went back and forth with like the doula, and I went upstairs and told my husband, and I was like, yeah, I think my water just broke. And he was like playing video games, and okay, because I've like joked with him about it before.
Yep.
So I was like, well, I'm just going to change my shorts and underwear, and we'll go back down and see if I need to do anything. And he's like, okay. And he didn't keeps
playing video games.
Yeah, he didn't stop at all. He didn't believe it. So then then I had called my doula. She was like, yep, you're having a baby today. And so then I was like, God dang it. Like, I'm not going to get to finish this workout. That was like literally my first, I was like, man. But then every piece of me was like, you know what, you get your workout later today.
Yeah.
Like, you will get this,
This is the workout.
And so went back upstairs and told him, yep, okay, like, for real, water broke. We need to, like, plan. We're going to be going to the hospital today. And so my doula had said, hey, just kind of like shower, take your time, get something to eat. And I was like, well, can we at least go on a walk? So I made my husband go on a walk with me. At that point, I didn't really have contractions that like really horrible. Maybe once every 30 minutes.
Okay.
When we went for a walk. We got back and we just kind of hung out. We like ordered food to go. And
oh yeah, because this is all during a global pandemic.
Yep, exactly. So nothing was open. So like it was like we had to get the food to go. We went back upstairs and ate food. And you know, my husband was just watching TV, ended up falling asleep, taking a nap. And I was just like sitting on my phone trying to like upload some pictures because I had procrastinated any sort of like drawings and pictures that I wanted at the hospital to have like to hang up or whatever. I had procrastinated, so I was like trying to download all these pictures and like send them to Walgreens so we could get them and go pick them up. And it kept like messing up my order, so it was taking me forever. But the whole time I was kind of timing contractions. And they were like 7 minutes, 12 minutes. Then they started being like 6 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes. And they weren't really consistent. And like what I thought I was looking for was like 4 minutes or 5 minutes on the dot.
Yeah.
Like 5 minute, 5 minute, 5 minute. I didn't realize that it was okay to be like 5, 6, 4. So eventually I got to where like I kind of noticed a little bit more of a pattern and they were getting more like stronger. And I said to my husband, like, I need to go to the bathroom and I don't know what's going to happen at this point. Something's going to come out of me and I don't know like what it is. I'm like, but just be aware, you know? And so I had sent the doula a message and I said, I think that we're getting close. And so she called and I was like on the toilet. Yeah. And she called and she was like, how far apart? And I was like, yeah, like 7, 5. She was like, you need to go to the hospital right now. Oh my gosh. And so we we had all our stuff ready, went to the hospital. By the time I got from like, we live upstairs. By the time I got downstairs to the car, and we got everything in the car, like I was like, well, I want to say bye to everyone and whatever. My contractions were like 3 minutes apart. Oh my gosh. And I was like bent over in the middle of the like street, you know, kind of getting in the car. So we drive to the hospital. That was pleasant. It was 45 minutes.
Close, right?
It's 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So, and then it happened to be at like 4:30, so there was traffic.
Oh my gosh.
So we went to the hospital when we went in. My doula was there and ready for us. We got up to the like admit room and they're like, yeah, you're 5 centimeters. Wow. And so off to like labor and delivery we went. But you know, again, like I said, like I had thought like, oh, I want to be active. I've got all these things prepped and planned in my bag, and like we're gonna use the massage gun and we're gonna use the thing that we're gonna like
the rebozo, the strap,
and we're gonna do all this stuff, and I need a yoga ball because I want to bounce, and I was like, I'd put me on the toilet. I was like, that's all I wanted to do was sit on the toilet or be like leaning over something. We tried like this special little chair thing that they had, and I was like, nope, not working. Yeah. We tried that. I was like, get the massage gun. And my husband went and got it and like tried it, and I was like, get that thing off me.
Stop that.
So my contractions got kind of like stronger. I was at a place where, so that was at like 4:30 we checked into the hospital. I was at a place at that point where I was like, where am I at in this process? Like that was what I was wondering, like where am I? How much further do I have to go? Like, how long is this going to be? But, like, the kind of, like, stubbornness in me, like, wouldn't say it out loud.
You wouldn't ask?
I didn't ask. I just kept thinking, like, God, where am I at? Where am I at? Like, just tell me where I'm at.
Yeah. So I know how to pace myself.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. But that kind of, like, for me, like, saying it out loud would be, like, almost, like, I think would give me permission to, like, be, like, vulnerable, I guess I would say. Like, vulnerable to, like, accepting, like, failure.
Yeah.
So, like, for me, and it wasn't really failure, but for me, it was, like, no, like, we're going to, like, push through this and, like, we're going to get through it. And, like, I would never consider it failure if I, like, was like, yep, give me meds. But it was kind of where it was at, you know?
We do this weird game with ourselves. Yeah.
So, yeah, contractions started getting stronger. I got to a place where I started getting worried. I didn't really like the feeling, like my teeth started chattering and I like uncontrollable, like kind of like almost like shaking. And I really wanted to, my midwife, we had a midwife, she came in and she was like, you know what, let's just check you. Let's check you, see where you're at. And so she checked me and she's like, oh, yep, you're good. Like, we're good. Let's go. Well, you're going to push.
Wow.
So she's like, your cervix is done. It's like gone. So at that point, like because I was feeling like I had wanted to push.
Okay.
And so they checked me and maybe it was probably like the entire time through probably from the time we got into the room, I just had my eyes closed. Like I didn't want to see anything. I didn't want that was me being in that like mental, like my mental state was just eyes closed. So they didn't really realize like how aware I was. Like my eyes were closed, but I knew every single thing going on around the room.
Yeah.
And so, but with that, like, I don't really know, like, times, you know, like, all my times were messed up. So eventually, like, we started pushing. They started me out just on my side. And I was on one side and we were pushing. And I got to a point where I was like, I'm done. I'm tired.
Yeah.
I'm tired. I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. I just want this to be over.
Yeah.
And I hadn't even been pushing, like, my labor wasn't even that long, but I was like, I'm done. I don't even want to do this anymore. And so I was kind of in and out of, like, crying, and we had made the agreement before that I could ask for meds, but not until contractions were over. So I had to finish a contraction before I could ask for medication.
Interesting.
And my first medication, I didn't want to be an epidural. I wanted it to be just like the other pain medication.
Yeah.
Because I thought I wanted to be active, but really I didn't care. So at one point, the clicking point for me, so I was on my side, and they said to me, I want you to push, and I want you to push further than you think you can. And that was like a click for me that like, suffer more, Carleen. Like, this was like my workout. Like that was like the mentality and like the wording that I needed for me to relate it to like what I do good.
Right.
Like what I do well, and like, oh, okay, like, go harder than you think you need to go.
Yeah.
And then go further there, like further. And that's when like all of a sudden things started happening, and like they were like, oh, like, okay, like we need to turn you. So like heart rate started to drop a little bit. So like, let's turn you. So they turned me, and whatever happened when they turned me, and they turned me to the other side, flipped me on my side to the other side, she came. Like, so it was like 2 pushes after that, and her head was there. And like her head came so fast that my doctor didn't even have her gloves on. So her head came, and they were like, I don't know who it was. Somebody said, stop. And I was like, what? Excuse me? Like, what is...
There's no
like,
stopping this moving train.
Like, what is going on? You know, and I'm like, what's happening? And my doula's like, stop. Why does she need to stop?
Yeah.
You know, and my midwife goes, no. Just slow down. I need to put my glove on.
Yeah.
And so she puts her glove on. She gets it just on like this. Like, it's not even through the fingers because she doesn't have time.
Yeah.
And she's like, yes, you can, like, finish. And so, like, and then I, like, had one more push, and, like, the rest of her was out of me. The cool part, though, is that, like, they did have me slow down at that point. And so they had my husband come around, and he was able to, like, see her head. And, like, he didn't want to, like, be down in that area.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So he didn't want to see that process, but he was like, that was really cool, like, afterwards.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so then she came the rest of the way, and, you know, like, I had, my experience with births before was my sister's,
Mm-hmm.
and my sister had, like, she had the cord wrapped around her neck, so that was a big fear of mine, and they're like, no, her cord's so small, like, it wouldn't even, like, it couldn't get wrapped around, like, her cord's really short, so she can't come up very high. So they, like, my husband cut the cord, and then we, like, were able to bring her back up to my chest, and she, like, ended up, like, she latched on really well. That was something that I really, like, was worried about, like, was how hard that was going to be for us. So she latched on, and I was just like, oh. And so at that point, I was so high.
Yeah.
On cloud nine, that, like, my doula was, like, making fun of me or, like, joking with me because she's like, you were, like, just fine afterward. Like, you just gave birth. And she was like, you were unicorns and rainbows. And he said, yeah, can I get, like, some candy? Can I get my Laffy Taffies? You know, and she goes, and your hair was just nice and a cute little pony and stuff. And I was like, oh, I was in a different world. Like, I was so, like, on cloud nine, and I ended up, like, we went to the, like, postpartum area at, like, 11:45 at night, and I didn't sleep for, like, 2 days because I was just, like, so, like, high.
Yeah.
It was, I had told my CrossFit coach, this was better than, like, this was way better than any WOD I've ever done.
Yeah.
Like, by far, like, this exceeds any WOD.
Yeah.
The, like, high that I got. So,
man, that's crazy to hear you say that, because I remember when Miranda was telling, I feel like maybe it was Knox's birth, but she mentioned something similar about this, like, crazy high and just feeling so good afterwards. And, like, I feel like maybe they left the birth center early or something. They went and even got some food or something. She was, like, feeling so good. And then there was like chills and feverish and that kind of stuff later.
Right.
But for a while, I wonder if there's something about, like, the level of athletes that you guys are, that it, like, you guys are just amped on that type of physical intensity.
Yeah, like the, like, intensity, like, adrenaline. And, because my husband was sleeping, like, he's so tired, and I'm like, I can't close my eyes.
Yeah.
Like, I was just, I was like, you sleep, that's fine. I'll just take care of this new baby. and that was, like, the biggest thing that I kept saying, like, oh my God, I can't believe I did it. Yeah. Oh my God, we did it. Like, we did it. Like, I cannot believe it. And it's, like, makes me emotional, like, thinking about it. You know, like, oh, we did it. It was, you know, it's like that 9 months, like, leading up to it.
More
and
than
you're
that.
like, yes, more than that. And you know, just are constantly, like, and I guess that's the thing too, is, like, you only hear about labor, and, like, you're just prepping for the labor. And so, like, I'm hearing, you know, I guess I had a lot of doubts. Like, I had a lot of doubts within myself of, like, what I was capable of doing or what it was going to look like, or just a lot of fear around the unknown of, like, I didn't know what it was going to look like. I didn't know what was going to happen. It's just so unpredictable. And then for us to, like, do it and, like, get through it and, like, have this little bean, like, afterwards is amazing. So yeah.
Oh man, that's amazing. You did do it, and there was a lot leading up to it. Not even just the 9 months, not even just those 2 years, but if you think about it, I know, and hopefully we can get into that in just a second, but like so much more that had to happen to get you to that moment where you're pushing out a little beautiful girl.
Yeah.
Just a question, I guess, because I'm curious about the birth and something you said about you just wanted to, like, have your eyes closed, and is that similar to how you are as an athlete when you're training? Are you like, I need to have my eyes closed, head down type of situation? How do you feel like there's similarities, or what, in terms of you as the athlete and you as a laboring person?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was, like, I think I just needed to, like, block everything. Like, I didn't want to see anything. That was, like, my way of, like, zoning in. And yeah, like, when I'm competing at my best, I'm in the zone. Yeah. And that was my way to go in the zone, because I couldn't just, like, I don't know, it was my way of, like, really focusing on my breathing and like in that's how I can get in the zone, is to, like, just focus on one thing instead of, like, oh, this hurts so bad, or oh my gosh, you know. So focusing away from what was going on, even though I knew everything that was going on.
Yeah. Okay, so Charlotte's born, and you and I both know that that's really only the beginning.
Yeah.
What was the early postpartum period like for you? Let's say more so on the physical side of things, and then we can talk about, like, the parenting and, like, that side of things. So what was your physical recovery like after she was born?
Yeah, so I physically I felt okay. My biggest issue was my tailbone. So the midwife said that, like, not a lot of times, but sometimes you will, like, fracture your tailbone.
Yep.
And she thinks that because of the quick turn that we did and how fast she came, that's probably what happened. You know, at my 6-week appointment, it was still bugging me. And she said, I'm sorry, but there's really nothing we can do about it. Like, rest is the only thing. Like, yeah I can get you an x-ray, but they're just rest.
Yeah.
So, so we don't know for sure, but, like, pretty positive, like, fractured my tailbone. And so that pain of, like, sitting down and then, like, sitting up and getting up was more pain than anything else that I experienced, like, from the birth.
Okay.
So I had one stitch and just a small tear, and so I was super happy about that. She was really small, though, so I got really lucky. She was 5 pounds, 11 ounces, so I'm like, I'll take it. And, you know, other than that, like, physically I felt good.
Okay.
When I was just sitting, walking around, you know, normal. Probably once we got home, you know, like I said, we live upstairs. So we were maybe, like, 4 days postpartum. And I was like, I feel good. Let's go for a walk. And so we load her up in the car seat, and I go to walk down the stairs. And I was like, oh, this is what they're talking about.
This is why they told me to rest.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so I definitely felt like really weak in my pelvic floor. Like felt like everything was like gonna just like fall down. And that was a kind of like an eye opener for me of like, okay, I'm not ready.
Yeah.
So we ended up walking that day, but it was a struggle for me to get like 800 meters in.
Yeah.
I was like, can we be done now?
Yeah.
Let's go back. It took more time to get her in the car seat and ready to go than it is worth the walk.
Yeah.
So I walked that day, and then a couple days later we had our initial doctor's appointment, and we had like kind of some time. We had a lactation appointment also. So we had a little bit of time to kill. So we walked, like, it was downtown Portland. We walked and to grab something to eat. And I was like, oh, this is too much. Like, I sat down on like a hard bench because it was the first time I had sat on something hard. And I was like, am I like sitting on a softball or like what is happening? So I'm like, the whole time I'm like, Keith, I think I'm sitting on something. And he's like, no, I don't see anything. I was like, I think this walk was too much. So after that, I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done with this like trying to move thing. So then I did the street parking postpartum recovery stuff. So that's when I started like doing the breathing and wrist circles and ankle circles, and was like, just laying in bed and was like, I'm doing my exercises. Like, here it is. And so it was probably like 2 weeks or like a week I did that. And then I decided, I think I'm ready to jump to the next stuff.
Yeah.
So that stuff wasn't really doing it for me. I jumped to the next stuff, and that was my jam.
Yeah.
So doing more of, the functional progression stuff, and I started out with it not loving it.
Yeah.
Like, was like, this is hard, but I know I need to do it. And it took me maybe 5 days before I started seeing progress in it, and then was like, okay, I see progress. I'm noticing, like, I'm getting better. I'm doing this more than I could. I'm doing more now.
Yep.
And I saw progress, and once I saw progress, I was hooked. And
Cool.
so I was like, all right, now I'm like, good. I'm all about this now. So that was kind of like my recovery of that. I took a full till I saw my doctor, 6 weeks before I did any sort of like impact. And once I saw my doctor and pelvic floor exam, and then that's when I started to slowly add in some more impact.
Yeah.
So
That's so cool. And it's been awesome to watch your recovery process. And I mean, I think I have appreciated so much how you've been at least open to the suggestion of like, hey, these are some tools. This is kind of a timeline. I think also, it's clear that you are, you have so much awareness and experience and a connection to your body, but it's like we know it doesn't necessarily matter how much experience you have. Like, your tailbone might still break, or your pelvic floor will need time. Like, it just does. So it's been awesome to watch you kind of honor that season, or this season, because you're still in it, I imagine. How is it feeling now, how's like your training? Are there things that you are surprised about or still feeling like, I don't know, what is it like now? A little bit further out.
I mean, I'm now like able to like start bringing intensity. It's still, it's kind of a funny, intensity is a funny thing for me because it's like, once you kind of go away from it, whereas normally I'm like, I want intensity, you kind of go away from it, you're like, well, this is kind of comfortable. Like, I'm okay here at this pace, like, I don't really want to suffer. Like, that doesn't really sound fun today. So it's very much like, some days I'll be like, yes, I want to suffer today or like feel intensity. And then some days I'll be like, I'm not feeling it. And that's okay.
Cool.
So yeah, I, leading up to probably like 2 weeks to like 6 weeks, I started walking like every day. So like into pregnancy, I was walking every day. And then postpartum, I started walking a lot. So I was carrying her, I was pushing her in the seat, and I was walking every single day. Like I was walking like 3 to 5 miles every single day. And I was loving it. And I really think that helped me transition back to like my CrossFit stuff. I don't feel like I lost much at all, like cardio wise. Weights obviously feel really heavy, but that's been really fun to experience new PRs every day. So every day I'm like, oh, PR. PR. That's heavier than last time. And so that's been really fun for me, and that keeps me like, it keeps me wanting to do stuff. Cool. So now, that's kind of where I'm at, is I just,
every day is a new PR.
Yeah, I get to like train how I want to, and work out how I feel that day.
Cool. Okay, so you have been really open and I would say vulnerable and brave in talking about publicly your experience with an eating disorder, with unhealthy eating or exercising habits, with addictions and your alcohol addiction, and I don't know if I've ever said it on here, but I am also recovering alcoholic. So I'm personally particularly curious about this subject and how it relates to your experience in motherhood. So I'd love to get your perspective on, first, let's say maybe the eating disorder and body image, just because it, like, your whole world, your whole body, like, literally is changing inside and out from the time you were trying to conceive, through pregnancy, through postpartum. How are you managing the daily struggle with that side of you, knowing that your body has to change?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like I talked about, like, I guess first I will say that, like, I've had a lot of ebbs and flows. So I've had highs, I've had lows in it. That's the thing with an eating disorder, is that I will always be in recovery from an eating disorder. I'm never recovered, right? Yeah. Like, I'll always be in recovery. Well, not always be in recovery, but as long as I'm not engaging in behaviors, I'll be like constantly working towards that.
Yeah.
It doesn't just go away for me. And with that, obviously eating disorder, body image is hand in hand. So the process of getting pregnant was challenging. It was definitely a battle of, days where I really, really struggled, and days that I was like, you know what, screw it, like, I don't care. And I guess that was the, screw it, I don't care, was me accepting it. But it was a lot of acceptance. Like, that's what it was about, was accepting that this is, this is what I want. This is how I have to change. And, you know, starting to learn to love myself for me and not either what I could do athletically or what I looked like.
Yeah.
So, you know, getting pregnant, it was that. Then once I got pregnant, there was a lot of comparison for me. I really struggled in comparing my pregnant body to what I thought my pregnant body should look like. And then as I got maybe almost probably to the third trimester, I started to love my pregnant body. And so I then began to like get to be in a really good place where I loved my body. I loved my pregnant body. I loved being pregnant at that point. I felt more sexy and more beautiful than I have ever felt in my entire life. When I was pregnant at like third trimester, when I was super big.
Wow. That's so cool.
And so I'll even like look back at pictures and I'm like, man, I want to be like pregnant again, but I don't want to, like, I'm not ready to go through that again. So yeah, so then, so that was during pregnancy, and then postpartum, it's been really interesting. I guess because I'm not really associating myself with as an athlete as much anymore. I don't have that like stigma of you have to look like this to be an athlete. You have to look a certain way to be fit. And that is a lot of, I feel like that gets thrown around in the fitness community a lot. Is like, if you look a certain way, therefore you are fit.
Yeah.
And that's not the case.
Yeah.
I can be fit, and I actually, when I had more body fat on me, I was fitter than I ever was. So, and I know that reality, but it doesn't make it like easy. So yeah, for me, when I got pregnant, once I found out I was pregnant, I hired a nutrition coach to hold me accountable, because I didn't feel like I was at a good place to be able to like kind of keep myself accountable, to be like fueling appropriately on my own. And so I hired someone to help me with that. And I've just been with him ever since.
Awesome.
And so through pregnancy, through postpartum now, of like being able to like, you know, postpartum, like we ramped up calories, and, you know, breastfeeding and having somebody there to constantly like remind me, like, you are fueling for your baby.
Right.
Like, you are fueling, like, yes, we could slash your calories right now, but is it like, do you need to? No, absolutely not. If you were like, you know, somebody who like we had a big weight loss goal for, like, yep, we could slash your calories and you'd be just fine, but like you have different goals.
Right.
So like a reminder and somebody like outside of me to hold me accountable has been really helpful in that. But yeah, like I said, postpartum, you know, somebody had asked me, like, is it really hard, like, you know, you not being at like where you've been before, and like your body's changed so much? And I was like, honestly, like, my focus is not my body so much. Like, I'm not focusing on the way my body looks.
Yeah.
And I don't know where that came from.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I mean, that's like, that just kind of switched for me, is like, I don't have, right now at least, like, I don't have a big, strong focus on the way my body looks. And I guess equating my worth to my body.
Right.
Whereas that's where it's been before.
Yeah.
So now it's like, it's different, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's better, but like now my worth is around like Charlotte.
Oh,
right? And
yeah.
so now I have things like, well, am I feeding her? Like, is she getting enough from me?
Yeah.
And so my worth becomes like over there. So is it better? Is it worse? Right? You know?
Yeah.
So.
I've heard you talk about that before, like in other interviews or other places where you started to figure out who you were outside of like being an athlete or looking like from your softball days. I know you played collegiate softball, or how you looked, what your body looked like, who you were when you were drinking or using or whatever. And now it's like, now there's this other identity that is forming that can be kind of, in my experience, like kind of consuming. It's who I am as a mother as well. And the judgments and comparisons that can form around that. And yeah, it's crazy. So you're saying like you haven't cared so much about what your body looks like. And I know just from connecting before, you've been going through a lot. Like you're a gym owner in a global pandemic. You have had like a really intense postpartum experience with Charlotte for a number of reasons. So those are things that are like consuming your attention and focus and energy. And it's like when you're not sleeping at night, it's hard to care about, you know, whatever you can look like. It still doesn't make it easy to like want to, you know, you go put on your jeans and you're like, well, shoot, those don't fit. That's a little confronting sometimes, I guess. But so now, like, kind of switching subjects a little bit, the being a sober mom, and what is that like for you? What are the tools and resources that you have in your life? Like, let's say you're a nutrition coach with your eating. What are the tools and resources that you have in your life to help you manage that, which is also, I think, a daily ongoing thing?
Absolutely. You know, before Charlotte, drinking was it's just not an option. It's just not an option. And it really is still not an option. But, there was a rough patch for me where I was like, do I want to drink again? Like, could I use this as an opportunity? You know, like, and I think that, it's glorified. Like, oh, like, I had such a hard day. Like, my kids were so horrible. Like, I'm having a glass of wine, like, to relax. And, like, and, with being postpartum and living in a global pandemic and everything that's going on, like, if I was still drinking today, like, it would be horrible. Like, it would be a mess. And I actually had this conversation with one of my friends who is also in recovery the other day, is that, like, man, like, I got out at the right time, like, thank God I'm sober today, because I don't know what would, like, it would not be good if I wasn't. I
feel like none of it just wouldn't be possible. Like, I wouldn't.
Right.
I don't think I would have survived this year had I been drinking.
No way. Yeah. And so, I mean, for me, like, the tools that I've been utilizing is just, like, connecting with people. So the more people that I can connect with that are also in recovery, St. Helens has an amazing recovery community, and I've connected with a lot of women in recovery. And so that for me has been a huge, like, support system. Especially because, like, I've got a new baby, like, all the women want to, like, help me take care of my baby.
Yeah.
And also help me stay sober.
Right.
So, I haven't gone to as many meetings as I would like to, but I've never really been a meeting person. But I do, like, reach out to those people. We were doing, like, some Zoom meetings, and that was really cool because I could just sit on my couch and nurse Charlotte at the same time I'm, like, doing a meeting.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, I think just, like, having that connection. We also, like, have a recovery program, so at my gym, so that allows me to continue to connect with people in recovery. And, just sharing, like, my experiences. That is really, like, I think the most for me, what keeps me sober is being able to share with people and being able to be like, somebody tell me their experience and me to be like, yep. Like, I talk about it, I've talked about it before at meetings that when I go to a meeting and share and people are just nodding their head, like, that gives me light. Yep. Like, that fuels me because I know that they get it.
Yep.
They understand. And so it's the same, it's the same thing with new motherhood when you're like, when moms are like,
oh gosh, yeah, like, yes, it is hard.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, we did the same thing. Like, when they give you that kind of just, like, nod, you're like, oh, I'm not crazy. I'm not. But yeah, in terms of, like, my recovery, we're, I'm going to get, like, my hormones tested today because there was, like, I had a rough patch where, like, I was like, I don't know if I can make it through this. Like, I don't know if I'll ever be the same again. I was very unhappy. Like, I was miserable. And that's hard for me because, like, I have this amazing child, and so for me to be like, I can't get happy, like, that's, like, why, like, why can't I, be happy? I have a lot going for me, but it was just, like, a bad place. And currently right now, like, I'm not in that place. I'm not, like, I considered it, like, deep in a hole.
Yeah.
But that scares me to be like, oh, I'm out of it. I'm done.
Yep.
Because it can come back really fast.
Totally.
And so, like, every piece of me wants to be like, oh, no, I'm fine. Like, I'm not having a bad day anymore. Yeah. Like, it's okay. Don't get your hormones tested. Don't worry about, talking to a doctor about meds because you're fine today.
Yep.
Like, well, what happens when it, like, flips on me in, like, 3 days, you know? Or tomorrow or tonight.
Yeah.
So we're in that, I'm in that process right now of, like, seeing if I do need to get on medication and, because, that is my history. I do have history of depression. I do have a history of anxiety, and my drinking just made it worse.
Totally.
And so I was able to, cope because I was drinking. But then once I took that out,
you gotta face it all.
Yeah.
See it all.
And I learned how to cope with exercise.
Yeah.
And so that was, like, my really big coping skill. But when that was taken away from me for 6 weeks, like, that was hard. Yeah. And then it was even when I got to go work out again, that was when, like, I got into a rough, like, place. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'm definitely, like, very open to that stuff too. Like, I think that, it can be, like, some people will be like, oh, you are? Like, yep.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm going to take care of myself.
Yeah.
Whatever I need to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's like, I know that my brain is sneaky, and it will find I feel like I've heard you say this before, like when I'm left to my own devices,
Yes.
you know, I will not, I usually will not make the right decision, and I can't afford to do that now, you know? So like I need to get help. And I think it sounds like for you, it's, you know, like having the coach, the accountability, the connection. Isolation is sneaky. So isolation in a pandemic, as a new parent, it's like there are so many things that are keeping me isolated that I have to actively seek out connection.
Yep.
Sharing about it, talking about it, being honest. Yeah. And I know that I heard somewhere early in my recovery, like when things are going good is when you need to be even more careful. So right now, like my life is as full as ever, especially with this beautiful new little baby or whatever. But that doesn't mean that I'm not just as vulnerable or more vulnerable, because that's when I will think like, oh,
it's
I
okay.
I can do this. Like, it's okay. Yeah, it's a sneaky thing, but I also think that I know how good things can be when I am healthy, and when I'm not just not drinking, but when I am a sober person, which is more than just not drinking, I think. And it can be so good and so clear and crystal and pure and beautiful, and I haven't been that, so I'm also getting help with a therapist and reaching out to people that I know that know me and how to help me find me again. Oh man, it's a roller coaster. Okay, so I feel like I could talk to you forever. But I just want to make sure that, is there anything else that you wanted to mention or talk about or share with the viewers or listeners or whatever about your experience? Something that you wish you had known, or now that you do know going into it, if you do again or whatever?
I can't think of anything like that's like a big thing that I wish I knew and wish I did. I mean, we were talking about it earlier, but the snoo. But
oh yeah, the
snoo.
If
it's a game
doesn't
changer.
always work for you, but like if it does, it is awesome. It
Yeah.
might be worth a shot.
Yeah,
says Carleen.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing with even like for me, like with postpartum and recovery and all of those linked in, is like the secret holds the power. And for me to like share any like secrets that I'm having, or like things that just share things, I know that other people are experiencing the same thing. Or when somebody shares their experience, I'm like, oh yeah, that's exact same thing for me. That allows me to like be like, okay, it's not a secret anymore. And like I can be open about this. And so for me, like just like talking about all of this, like it helps me release its power, and you know, be able to hopefully like help someone else too, like know that they're not alone.
That like being of service, you know, it helps. It's really selfish because it's actually helping me probably more than it's helping them. I love that. Okay, and then just one last thing, what is the role, or what's your favorite thing about street parking, and how street parking has been a part of your life in this whole season?
I have a lot of things, really. So, you know, I came to street parking because, you know, we were kind of talking about it out there that, like, I went and worked out with Miranda and Julian, and that was when like Nicole and them were just moving. Like they just moved here that week or something. And we were talking about like my struggles with trying to get pregnant. And so like we got pregnant. And so I knew that like I had wanted to like be involved with like doing, following street parking. And so, I was like, all right, as soon as I get pregnant, I'm waiting till I get pregnant though. As soon as I get pregnant. So it was like January 1, or it was right before January 1 because there was a deal. And so, for me, like becoming a street parking member, and like being able to have all the different modifications.
Cool.
Those have been huge for me. Not only can I share them with others, like my athletes, but they also like help me like get creative.
Yeah.
And then, now we're living in this weird time and my gym's closed, and I swear half of my members are street parking members now. And so part of me is like, man, but the other part of me is like, I know you're in a good place.
Yeah.
Like, I know you've gone somewhere good. I'm not like, no hard feel. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, good. Yes, you're going so like.
Because you care about them.
Yeah,
and
you're
want
going
them to
somewhere
be okay.
else.
Yeah.
Then that's where I want you to be.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, it's funny because I like really like half of my gym is now they're doing vault workouts and
oh no,
and I'm like, man. But I'm a member also, so I'm like, I can't. You have a home gym? Yeah, absolutely. Like, yeah, that's what you should be doing.
Right.
So
yeah. Amazing. Okay. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to sit with me. You're really just such a huge inspiration, and I'm so excited for you as a mom and as an athlete, as a person. I'm really, really excited to watch you continue.
Thank you.
To just crush life. And I really appreciate your honesty and sharing your experience. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and hopefully you enjoyed this, you got something out of it, and we'll see you on the next one.